review Old School Essentials today on DungeonCraft. Welcome to DungeonCraft. I'm Professor Dungeon Master, coming to you from beautiful Dungeon University, wearing my +1 tweed jacket of insight. And this channel is about running the ultimate game of D&D and other tabletop role-playing games.
And I'm Deathbringer. Level up your game and subscribe to be informed when we upload new videos.
I first learned to play D&D with this. This is the 1980 Tom Moldvay edition, also known as BX, and it's held in very high regard by game designers, many of whom consider it to be superior than the more popular Advanced Dungeons & Dragons. Old School Essentials attempts to capture the feeling of the Moldvay edition while cleaning up the rules for a new generation of players. We're going to take a look at it today, and I'm going to answer some of the most frequently asked questions about old school games. The whys. Why are wizards so weak? Why death at 0 hit points? Why are elves a class and a race? And why would anyone play this version over 5e? We'll answer those questions and more. Let's go to the table. So Old School Essentials comes in this very sturdy, very big box. And there are 5 books in the box: core rules, genre rules, cleric and magic user spells, monsters, and treasure. All of these books are hardbound and stitched. They're all about 80 pages. That makes them of uniform length. And so they fit nicely like that. And let's take a look inside. So the core rules, first thing you'll notice is efficient use of space. They put the most essential information on the inside covers to minimize flipping. So all the most important charts that you would need as a game master are right at your fingertips. Inside, the art is very reminiscent of old school products with some terrific splash pages as well. I really dig this art. It's humorously gory, and it's really reminiscent of the old school style where the characters are depicted as victims struggling. The rules are very straightforward and easy to understand. It doesn't include an example of play. Instead, it directs players to the internet where they can just watch D&D played, something that wasn't available in the early 80s. Here we have the terminology and a mission statement, which was to cleave as closely to the source material as possible. Great splash pages here. One concession that has been made for newer gamers is ascending armor class. Old games used a system called THAC0. It was really confusing. But all monsters here are given ascending armor class stats as well as the original, so that's very convenient. Ability scores are done with a 3d6, not with a 4d6, drop the lowest. Characters are going to have lower scores on average, and average to 9 to 12, and if you look on this chart, you will notice that it goes only up to +3, not +4, like 5th edition. So OSE characters are less powerful than their 5e counterparts. It's very rare to find a character who has bonuses in more than, say, 2 ability scores, and it's equally likely you're going to have low scores to balance those out. Combat, again, facing pages with just a little bit of extenuating circumstances like subduing an unarmed attacks on this addendum on the back. Why is the combat so short? Well, a couple of reasons. Initiative is group initiative. D6 takes the highest. There are optional roles for individual initiatives, but most old school DMs just do group initiative. That shortens combat considerably. Also, characters are dead at 0 hit points. There's no such thing as negative hit points and death saves. When you hit 0 hit points, you are dead. Everything for designing a dungeon, designing a wilderness, designing a base town. Experience points. You get some XP for killing monsters, but most is gained by accumulating treasure. 1 gold piece equals 1 experience point. Even if the players aren't altruistic and they don't feel like helping the town and they don't want to fight the dragon, they must in order to get its gold so they can convert it into XP and they can level up. The genre rules cover the available character classes. Everything is facing page. The entire cleric, including their experience points needed to gain levels, here. Dwarf, elf, fighter. There are no cleric domains. A cleric is a cleric, and they specialize in turning the undead, healing, and protecting the party. All classes have lower hit dice. You'll notice the fighter here has only D8 hit points per level. Human characters go up to 14th level, and optional rules cover going beyond that. Demi-humans, such as elves and dwarfs and halflings, have level limitations. Halflings can only go up to 8th level, for example. Magic users have very few hit points, only D4 per level, and their selection of spells is very limited. I never noticed this in older editions, but you essentially have 1 spell per level. So a 3rd level magic user 3 spells, a level 6 spells, level 9 spells. Each class has individualized experience thresholds to meet. So to get to 2nd level, a magic user needs 2,500 experience points, a fighter only 2,000, a thief we don't use the euphemism rogue, only 1,200. And that's because thieves lead very short, very exciting lives. They only have D4 hit points, so they're very fragile. One wonky feature is thieves' abilities. They're handled with percentile dice for the most part, except Hear Noise, which is handled on a D6. Elves, halflings, and dwarfs are classes unto themselves. An elf is essentially a fighter magic user, and they need twice as much experience points as a fighter does to gain a level, so their progress is going to be much slower. They're not as tough as a fighter, they only have D6 hit points, but they're immune to ghoul paralysis and can detect secret doors and have other powers. So elves do have a lot of cool powers, but if you're going to play one, you're going to be on 3rd level while everyone else is on 6th. Let's take a look at the cleric and magic user spells on the inside cover. It lists the spells by level, along with the page number they can be found on. Very convenient. Inside, you'll find all the traditional spells, your Cure Light Wounds, Bless, Magic Missile, Fireball, etc. I love these descriptions. They are concise with bullet points to highlight the really important stuff. More great art here. I love these eyes in a vat. The praying cleric as well. My buddy Hanker Infernale over at Runehammer talked about how he really loved this monster book. I'll show you a few pages. This is 5 monsters on these 2 pages. These are all the rules for dragons: black, red, gold, green, every kind of dragon. So there's an accent on efficiency. Let's take a look at the stats for a classic monster, the vampire. The stat block is located in this box. The vampire's powers are clearly delineated with bullet points. The chief of these is the level drain. On a successful hit, the vampire drains 2 levels from the character permanently, no saving throw. This makes a direct assault on a vampire a foolish endeavor, one that's almost certain to fail. What you want to do is take advantage of the vampire's vulnerabilities. The level drain is a way of mechanizing fear. In modern games, we would have a fear check. But here, the energy drain is scary because no one wants to lose levels. Treasures are organized in potions and rings and scrolls and maps, swords, etc. One of the things I love are these random charts at the back so you can randomly generate some treasure. Very convenient. As much as I love my classic 1980 Moldvay rules, I have to say, in terms of clarity, presentation, and ease of use, Old School Essentials sets the benchmark. It is an outstanding product, and I give it my enthusiastic recommendation. In addition to this box set, OSE is also available as a single book. It looks really nice with that leather-like cover and a bookmark. So if you prefer all your books in one place, that's a viable option as well. And now for the whys. Why death at 0 hit points? You ever played that game where someone's reduced to negative hit points and they make their death save, and someone uses Healing Word and they pop up again, and they go down again, then they pop up again. Fight drags on and on for over an hour, and it's kind of goofy. That doesn't happen in an old school game. You're either alive or you're dead. Why are wizards so weak? Well, that's because this game is rooted in sword and sorcery fiction, not heroic fantasy. We're talking about Fritz Leiber and Robert Howard, where the wizards were usually the bad guys meant to be killed. It's also world building via mechanics. It explains why there aren't that many wizards. It's very difficult to attain those high levels of power, and it explains why haven't the wizards and spellcasters just taken over the world? Why are classes and races the same? You can have all the powers of the elf combining the magic user and wizard, but it takes you far longer to gain a level, and you're only going to have half as many hit points. So it naturally balances out with the other classes. But again, it's world building. Elves and dwarfs, they're as different from humans as are king crabs and flying squirrels. They don't share the same DNA, they don't intermingle, they don't reproduce, there are no half elves, there are no half orcs. Why don't elves and dwarfs have clerics? Because they don't have organized hierarchical religion like human beings do. And why would they? Maybe they worship the stone and the earth, or maybe they worship the trees, and they don't need clerics to have an organized religion. Why are elves spellcasters and fighters? Well, maybe they're inherently magical. Combat is shorter and far less predictable. You could lose initiative in one round and then start off giving you back-to-back attacks. The tide of combat can change like that. You could be winning and all of a sudden losing, or losing and all of a sudden make a comeback. So if you want to play more game in less time, Old School Essentials may just be for you. But That's what I think. What do you think? You can always put your comments below. Also below, you'll find a link to Macbeth, my collaboration with William Shakespeare and the Quest Givers, and the DungeonCraft Facebook group and Patreon, where I have converted the rogues from percentiles to a D20 system. So you can get that on Patreon now, as well as tons of other cool stuff. Once again, for DungeonCraft, I'm Professor Dungeon Master. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you soon, and until then, may all your rolls be 20s.
Deathbringer again. If you ask me, death saves are the D&D equivalent of flag football. So if you want more bone-crunching fun, click on more DungeonCraft.